Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of HeadCoachU. I am Bryan Fischer, and I'm joined in just a second here by Bronco Mendenhall, former BYU and Virginia head coach, who, like so many members of the college football community this week, were rocked by the news on Sunday night that 3 football players at the University of Virginia were shot and killed tragically in an incident there on the grounds. Receiver Devin Chandler Jr. from Huntersville, North Carolina, who transferred into the program from Wisconsin. Receiver Lavel Davis Jr., a junior from Dorchester, South Carolina, and linebacker Deshaun Perry, a junior from Miami. Now, fellow student Marley Morgan and junior running back Mike Hollins were also shot in the attack. Morgan, according to reports, has been discharged from the hospital, and Mike Hollins is doing well after 2 surgeries. A recent family statement even said that he is up and walking around, so continued and speedy recovery to them both. Now, Cavaliers understandably have canceled their game this week against Coastal Carolina, but the school is going to hold a memorial for all 3 players on Saturday in Charlottesville at 3:30 Eastern. You can watch that live on the ACC network. But in talking with Bronco, we wanted to kind of celebrate the three players as well, with some stories about who they were and really the impact that they made far beyond the football field. So to introduce several of the coaches that knew them and have some great stories to tell about them, I'm going to turn it over to Bronco here, who can lead our discussion.
Okay, so it's under really unique and challenging circumstances that we're here tonight for our listeners and viewers. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. I don't really have a frame of reference or a reference point to compare it to. The young men that have just passed away, we as a coaching staff have been immersed in their lives from the selection and assessment and bringing them to UVA to onboarding them to all the way until just recently, and our relationships have been galvanized with them in a way that just, even as I've been talking to reporters this week, I can't articulate really what and who they are and to what depth we're connected. And so I thought for this evening, I've invited members of my previous coaching staff, and these are the guys that worked with the young men that have passed away. So as listeners, you can hear who these young men really are and were, and the impact they had on us as a coaching staff. And I'm hopeful that this can be a powerful testimonial and memorial to their families that they'll be able to have moving forward, and just hopefully another positive thing that reflects on the impact these kids have had, and in this unique world of college athletics and higher education now, and some of the things that come with that. And so on the screen, for those that are just listening, Nick Howell, who was the former defensive coordinator at the University of Virginia, and Nick and I have been together a long, long time. Mark Atuaia just joined. He's currently coaching at Washington State. He was the running backs coach at Virginia. Nick is now at Vanderbilt as the defensive coordinator. Kelly Poppinga was the linebackers coach here at Virginia and is now at Boise State. Matt Edwards is on, who was our senior analyst at UVA, and is now working in analytics with another firm. And Charles Mack is still at the University of Virginia as a graduate assistant, and Drew Meyer, a special teams analyst with the University of Virginia. And there'll be others coming and going as this dialogue goes on. The other coaching staff members are at different institutions, and they're getting ready for games. And I have appointments with family members of these kids right after this is over. And so we're all managing the very best we can. But I think I'll just start by sharing one of the most difficult things for me has been to have heard this devastating and tragic news and to not be there. And the distance has magnified the grief, I think is how I would say that. And maybe it's hard to know where to go with it or what to do with it. because the kids aren't there to hug and the parents aren't there to hug, and the staff members that I've grown so close to that are on the screen aren't there. And so I think that's been one of the most challenging things to experience. So I think that I'll just start with Kelly Poppinga. And so Kelly coached Deshaun Perry, the 3 young men that have passed away. Deshaun Perry played linebacker for us. Lavel Davis played wide receiver, and Coach Hagens is still at the University of Virginia, and he's currently in a counseling session with his current players as they're grieving and trying to sort things out. And otherwise he would be on. And then we'll hear from Mark Atuaia in a moment, as well as Michael Hollins was injured, but is still living and making progress. And so Devin Chandler was also a wide receiver as well. And we'll pass on as many things as we can about not only the process, but just who these kids were. So Kelly, if you want to maybe start us on what it's been like for you, and just, yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate this opportunity to be able to be here with everybody. And man, it's been, just like you said, Coach, like for me, the hardest thing is just not being able to be there with people I love and care about, to go, mourn with those who are mourning and try to comfort those that need comfort. And that's I think a part of the grieving process, and that's been the hardest part for me, just being away from everything and just not being there. And it's tough. That part's been the toughest thing. And I look back at, I was just thinking about this when I was driving home from work today, of just Deshaun and just how long I've known him. I didn't really, you think I coached him for 3 years, but then you think back to the recruiting process. And I was just telling Nick this. I started recruiting Deshaun when he was a sophomore in high school. And just, you forget about all the phone calls and all the text messages and all the trips down to Miami, watching him play basketball and watching him play football. And there's just this, probably 5.5 year period of relationship building that happens. And so, yeah, you grow really, really close to these kids, not just through the game of football, but just through building relationship to help them understand why the University of Virginia could be a great place for them. And so I just that just dawned on me. All the time I spent with his family, in in-home visits and, on their official visit, and when they came to games, and it's just, you just build these relationships over time, and, that makes it, that much harder. But as I, started reflecting on just my relationship with Deshaun and the type of person he was, or who he is that Deshaun had the purest heart. That's the thing that always stood out to me about Deshaun, is he just was very open-minded about everything. This guy from Wyoming, meeting this guy from Miami, and his whole family putting trust in myself and our coaching staff. And he just was just the purest hearted kid. And I remember when my wife and kids first met him, when we had him over at our house for the first time, I remember him walking out of the house, and my wife was like, man, he is the sweetest kid. And just, once you get to know Deshaun and you see him on the football field, that, that switch, as we all know, that switch can flip a little bit, and he can get a little crazy at times. But man, the best memories I have of Deshaun is just at my home. And being over at my house for Christmas, for 2 Christmases in 2019 and 2021, and just being able to have those moments of spending Christmas with your players and him being there. And I remember his mom sending me a big long text message about how grateful she was that he was in a home, and being able to have, sit around a Christmas tree and being able to have Christmas dinner. And, those memories are just, I think about them now, and I look at the pictures, and I just, man, I love them. They bring me peace and joy and happiness. And the other night, probably the thing that touched me the most was when I had to tell my girls what had happened. And Hattie, who's she's my third girl, and the memory she had of Deshaun was when he was at our house, he always played the piano. And so I don't think Deshaun could read music. He did it all on just playing by ear, and just got on the piano and just started rolling. And Hattie would sit right next to her, or right next to him, and he would just play away. And that's what she said the other night, as I remember Deshaun, him playing piano, and how I loved it, and it brought me peace. And pretty awesome to just, have that experience with your daughter. Now that's how she's remembering this young man, and pretty talented dude to be able to just get on the piano and just start playing away. And every time, without fail, he'd get on the piano and just start going. And pretty awesome to be able to have those memories with him, and then also be able to share those with our kids. And, my heart breaks for all those involved. And, I don't think I've prayed more my whole entire life just to have people, in Virginia, Drew and Charles and Tujague and those guys that have been right there with those players, just to be able to provide them the peace and comfort and hope that they need. And, I know it's even tougher for those dudes because they've been right on it from the very beginning, but I know we've all been there too with them. And just, man, I just love those kids. They have a special place in my heart, those Virginia kids, and Deshaun Perry, just a special, special person, and will always have an impact on my life. And just appreciate this opportunity to be able to speak that and be able to just kind of get that out there a little bit. It helps with the process a little bit.
I found that, as well as talking out loud, but more importantly, talking to people that understand. And not many people understand what it's like to be on a coaching staff and on a team, and the depth of those relationships. And it really helps. So again, for our listeners, that was Kelly Poppinga, and he coached the linebacker, Deshaun Perry, and Nick was there and had a chance to work with Deshaun also. I think we'll just stay speaking about Deshaun for a little bit, and then maybe we'll just kind of go one by one. So for the rest of you, Jason Beck just joined. He's our quarterbacks coach at Virginia, now at Syracuse, and Garett Tujague, our offensive line coach at UVA, who's still the offensive line coach. He just joined as well. So I'm going to move it to Nick regarding Deshaun, and then the rest of you, any thoughts that you have regarding Deshaun when Nick's done, and we'll just kind of move that way.
Just good to hear Kelly share his experiences of Deshaun, and, brought back a lot of memories to me as well. I remember when he came on his official visit with his family. I remember sitting at your home, Coach, when they were doing the horse riding, and being around his parents and being around his sister. And, as you do that and you assess, and, guys are coming into the program, you just try to get to know their families and see where they come from. And you just knew Deshaun came from a really, really good home, that he was raised really well. And, his parents were awesome people. His sister was so supportive. What I remember about Deshaun, he came into, Kelly, your group was like just really a strong group with Charles and Peace and Noah and all those guys. And, we work hard, and I just remember him being a really hard worker. And, when we redid the McHugh after COVID, Kelly, your room was you had all the backers, and that big defensive staff room you guys were in there. I just daily, you guys had your time and your place in there, and I always just loved coming in there. And, there was, 7 to 10 guys in there. Just, these kids come to college and they have these dreams and these goals, and they just go after them. And Deshaun was one of those guys, but he was in there daily, just learning. And there was that camaraderie of those guys joking and laughing and going over blitz patterns or some check or whatever, but always there. I know I talked to Peace this week, and Peace had a special relationship with Deshaun, and just watching Chris mentor him. I remember, his relationship with Charles and the closeness that those guys had, and that was special to watch. From a personal perspective, just watching Deshaun inspired me, because he came into a competitive group and it didn't go easy for him, and he always tried. But I just remember him being a worker. You remember the tour of duties that we had? Like, I would remember that dude just being drenched with sweat of how hard he worked, man. And he didn't say a lot on the field. He didn't. as a coach as well, you learn a lot about these kids. And I think that a sign of toughness as a football player is like the guys that are prone to physical toughness. There's a characteristic about those dudes. And, that tough mindedness is displayed can be displayed in football through physicality. And he was one of those guys. We remember, we have our text thread, and he'll be remembered for that play against Abilene Christian where he had that pick. That was a great play by him. And to watch his teammates, I watched Marky, the raps and stuff. That class was like, this summer when you had to go check on those boys at the dorms. That was the first sign that class was like pretty tight, and Deshaun was right in the middle of that thing. And I just watched. I pulled that film up, and I watched Chase Chalmers go embrace him. I watched Jake DeWeese. They're chasing him down, and those guys, mostly scout team guys, were just, they loved Deshaun as a teammate. He was a great teammate. Kind of the last memory, I work here with Kirko, who's a UVA guy, played for us as well. And, Kirk and I have been able to lean on each other. And, we pulled up some tape, Kelly, of that Georgia Tech game. That game went from, the offense and defense were never really close to each other during the game. I turned and looked at Tujague, like, are we going to win this sucker, man, at the end after those onside kicks and stuff. But there was a point at the end of that game, and I told Kirko, let's pull this up. And there was about the last 10 plays of the game. And we put Deshaun in there to rush the quarterback. And, man, he tried his tail off, man. And that's just who he was. Like, always trying hard, always working hard, never complaining, and just was a team guy. And so that's what sticks out to me as I reflect on Deshaun, and just grateful for his example of just hard work and humility.
So Garett, I think I'd like to shift to you. So this is Garett Tujague, our offensive line coach at Virginia, and currently the offensive line coach. And so Garett was really working, I would say, against Deshaun every day, but also Garett's perspective will be unique because while many of us have been away from these kids during this really challenging time, Garett has been here with them. And so Garett, maybe just share what this has been like for you and the team and your family, and then maybe some thoughts on Deshaun.
Yeah, it's grateful for this opportunity. Like you guys said, I think, like Kelly said, the more we get to talk to people that get it and understand it and are in it. I think the beautiful thing about this is it is family. And I think sometimes people see it more as a business, but it's really family. And in families, right, you get to see the good, you get to see the bad, and sometimes you even get to see the ugly. But you always come out of it with this group with love. And, man, Deshaun was definitely loved by his teammates. And this year for him, he went from, inside backer to a rush edge, back to inside backer, and never complained. Like you guys say, worked hard every day. And I think the best thing about Deshaun is, like, you see this hard kid from Miami on the outside, but man, inside is just, you don't want to say misunderstood, but he's full of love and joy and passion. And like Nick said, the things you look for in a young man that just embraces the grind. And again, pretty special. This last game, he played probably the most plays he's played in his career at the University of Virginia. And obviously the outcome wasn't what we wanted, but you could see a sense of peace and joy in his heart Saturday in the locker room after the game, because he was doing what he loved to do. And man, he's been a great inspiration for me, because after practice, we're battling against each other, like Coach said. And he'd always come up and ask me, hey, man, what could I do better? And I'm like, man, I'm not going to tell you what you do better than my guys. I'll tell you after we get out of fall camp or, after we get out of spring ball, because we were competing. But he always wanted to improve. And it's been really enjoyable to look at all the things that you guys have been posting. And Kelly, when you put that him playing the piano, man, that was special. And so I think the most important thing about all of this is that we have each other, that we lean on each other, and we tell these kids daily how much we love them and appreciate them, because, man, they're doing hard things. And a lot of their peers are not. And Deshaun embraced that. He lived that. So it's been hard. But I'll tell you that every chance I get, I tell them that I talk to you guys a lot, and they appreciate your love, and they need your love. This community has embraced you guys from afar and appreciated your support, and it's been fun to be on the outside and see that. And I think it's a terrible tragedy, and as you go throughout this life, you hear about, oh man, there was another shooting, and you stop and you pause and you pray for the people in that community. And then you go on about your day, and maybe if it goes across the news screen or it hits your social media feed, you're like, oh man, that's right. But I can tell you, man, it's indescribable being in it. And these kids need you. They need you. So I appreciate this opportunity, Coach.
I think one of the things that that we all feel as parents is we all want to be needed, and we all want to have an impact, and the world of coaching allows that in a way that is just indescribable in terms of how difficult it is, but also how rewarding. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes these really hard things for people to say and share what they really think about another person, and use the word love more, and see behind the role on the field, or etc. And it's just it's way more fulfilling to embrace the entirety of a person rather than just what they do. So Coach Atuaia, Mark Atuaia is our running backs coach and is all the way in Pullman, Washington now. That's a long ways from Charlottesville, and has an amazing family. I'm anxious just to hear from you, Mark. And we'll go to Jason. We'll go to you next. But just what this process has been like for you, being so far away from these kids that you care so much about, and then maybe speak to Mike Hollins a bit after that.
Sure. Much like it's been said, I've struggled big time since Sunday. In fact, I was here at work about 8:30 or so, and I started making my way back home, and that's when everything started to break. And now I'm calling Garett, and I'm calling others just to try to figure out what was going on. You hear football players and UVA, and your heart immediately turns there. And so, yeah, it's been difficult. It's been really difficult. I think another narrative that's within this deal is the current places that we're at. The football fraternity, as you just stated, Coach, it's a real thing. And, I've been buoyed up by many here. It's not uncommon. You guys all know me, my HBDI. I'm red as can be, and there are times in the day where I'll just stare out and start crying just because I miss those three, and I do have personal experiences with all three of them. Deshaun, many don't know, but while he was earning his keep on defense, he actually played big back for me. He was in my room, and he was again, like what Garett just said, he was, kicking tail on that side. And so I said, well, why not try to find him a role on my side? And so he was a big back for me, while he was earning his keep there. Lavel, shoot, I'm sure Jason will speak to that, and doesn't not in any way limit or mitigate how much I love him. I'll just let Jason speak on that. And then with Devin, Devin was he's from Hawaii. He was when we were recruiting him before he chose Wisconsin, I was heavily involved in that with Coach Higgins because we had that connection, and so as Bronco pointed out, we go through that whole ordeal, and he chooses there, and then we left, and that he chose to come back because of the job of showing him what that was at UVA. But the places that we are right now, they've been excellent in doing that. And so I just want to say, to everybody on here, that the relationships that we have with these young men, they aren't severed by distance nor by institutional change. These things that we do are we give from our heart, and we coach from our heart. And when we do those things, we build these relationships, and they're able to understand that they transcend wherever we are. And so I'm hoping that, with this podcast and everybody else that listens, and I'm sure everybody that does listen are coaches or aspiring coaches that try to be in this. I've learned from Coach Mendenhall and from Coach Atuaia that you lead with your heart and you coach from your heart, and you let these young men know that you love them, even though you're demanding, even though you coach them hard, they'll respond and they'll know because that love is genuine. And so we have these relationships with these young men. And I'm hoping that they understand when they hear this, or if they, by some opportunity, get to know that we love them and that we care for them, that these things are forever made. And I hope you, Charles, and you, Luke, Drew and Garett, you can pass that on to those young men, how much we love them, how much they should know that they're our kids too, and that and I might as well just say right now, so Coach, we're gonna wear UVA gear on Saturday. All of us that are on this thread that are not there anymore, we're gonna represent those young men at the current institutions that we're at. We're gonna sport the V-Sabres, the blue and orange, and let them know that they're not forgotten by us, that we love them, and that we care for them. And then all the time that we've put in and all the relationships that we've built, they don't just leave because we've left. And I'll turn the time back to you, Coach.
I appreciate that, Marky. And so many times something symbolic, right, reinforces a feeling. And you can't tell me that those kids, when they see their former coaches at different institutions in different colors, wearing their mark, that's not going to be impactful. And it just is, it's an amazing gesture. And I appreciate that example. We'll shift, Drew, and we'll go to you.
Yeah, Coach, it's obviously been a really tough time for our team, for our program. There's no playbook for grief, and there's no plan. Everyone has their own process, and for a whole program, it's been a very difficult time for our guys. Dealing with guys that were a part of the situation, dealing with guys that were barricading their doors, listening to police scanners, hiding. And then as a staff, guys that are trying to be there to support. All the prayers, all the thoughts have been extremely impactful. I know it's meant a lot to our players. We're just trying to take one step each day. Some guys are able to take more than others, but grief is not linear. It doesn't necessarily, just because you had one good day, you're going to have another good day. I mean, it's a roller coaster ride up and down, and each day is its own new battle. Each day it's its own new challenge. Our young men are hanging in there, but it's been extremely difficult. These were three incredible young men. Deshaun, everybody loved him from his time on the scout team to special teams this year. He was really starting to evolve as a young player, as a linebacker and special teams, becoming a leader in our program and a guy that everyone really looked to. And it wasn't just because of his play, it's because of who he was and the way he treated others. And even listening to and hearing tributes from classmates around campus, he made an impact wherever he went, and just was a young man that people gravitated towards because of the way he treated others. Lavel, obviously an amazing player as well, but has had his own journey, coming back from an ACL injury. The last couple weeks, I've really tried to go out of my way to talk to Lavel and target him and really ask him what his favorite part of each day has been. Because I know he had been a little frustrated with some of his play, but and then he was dealing with a concussion these last couple weeks, and he ran up to me last week and he said, "Coach, what's the best part of your day?" And tried to flip the script and the narrative on me. And I said, I just enjoy spending time with you guys out here today. And I said, "What about you though?" And he said, "Coach, it's having Christopher and Jackpot, the Coach Hagan's young boys. He's like seeing them today at practice. He's like, that's the highlight of my day." And he was extremely involved with the Hagan's family, obviously, and I don't want to, speak on their behalf, but, I got to be at Lavel's baptism back in the day. It's just, these are young men that we were part of their lives and they were part of ours. And it was, football is a giant family. And truly, these young men made such an impact on all of our lives. And Devin, too, we had a special connection with his transferring in from Wisconsin. And obviously, we had all recruited him in high school, and I was disappointed that he went there, even though I played there. And I was like, well, if there's two schools and there's one other school he's going to go to, I feel comfortable with him going there. And then obviously he found his way back. And so we had a lot of fun just chatting about his experiences there and what he learned and how he could improve, at Virginia and what the change that would make for him and maybe change of pace. And but his smile, he was a guy that was always smiling, always dancing, always trying to pick guys up. Just infectious. He scored a touchdown in our mock scrimmage on kickoff return. Coach Mack had those guys going. Charlie had those guys going, and they housed the kickoff return on our kickoff team, and the rest of the coaching staff's all shaking their head like, what's going on? And Devin's sliding in the end zone. He's got his arms up, his legs out. He's talking smack at halftime, talking how he's going to take another one back in the second half. Just a joy to be around each day. And, these three young men were great individuals and great role models, and guys that every coach would have wanted to coach and had been lucky enough to have that pleasure to coach.
Charles, would love to hear just your perspective. So Charles works at the University of Virginia and as a graduate assistant, as a younger coach, just right in the middle of all these players' development. And so, Charles, I'd love to hear what experiences you've had with these kids and just what this has been like for you.
Yeah. So to start off, I want to thank everyone for their support at the University of Virginia. Your prayers and thoughts, another team and staff greatly appreciate it. So I fortunately have a lucky viewpoint because I got to work on both sides of the ball. So I got to be involved with all three of these men pretty closely. And, like Coach Meyer said, Drew said, man, they're all great human beings that truly be missed, man. And I was also a part of Lavel's baptism. I just remember back then, Coach and I was bringing out his ukulele and playing at Lavel's baptism, and it was just like a party right there. And I know we all deal with grief in our own type of way, but what helps me get through, man, is just thinking about their life as a celebration, not as a homegoing, but more as a celebration. Because deep inside, I feel like this is exactly what these guys would want. Every time I would come in the wide receiver room and see Lavel to start off meeting, man, he's always sitting in front. He's always smiling, looking up to soak up any type of knowledge you can. And, not only did he make the room around him better, he actually made me better too. Because I know anytime I presented to the room, man, you have to be on your P's and Q's, because Lavel is the type of person that he'll challenge you to make sure that you know exactly what you're talking about. And you go back to Deshaun, man. One thing that sticks with Deshaun is just he does everything so passionate, and you know exactly what you're going to get with Deshaun. He's always reliable. And it's one thing I always talk with Drew about, man. Anytime he asks, who do you think should go on special teams at this position, man, the first person that always comes to mind is Deshaun Perry, because you know exactly how you're going to get it. You're going to get it 100%. And he was like that off the field as well. And I shared his story with the team the other day that Deshaun used to ask me, like, Coach Mack, why are you always lifting? Like, your playing time is done. And I used to tell him, like, just in case I had to go against you in one-on-one matchup one day. And sure enough, our last week of practice, we didn't have enough bodies out there. So I'm lining up at tight end. And sure enough, it's Deshaun Perry right across from me. And he looks me dead in the eye. He goes, here's your go. Here's your time right now. And we just – it was good to share a laugh over that. And then going to Devin was a part of his recruiting process twice, the first go-around and the second go-around. I remember when he first came on campus the second go-around, I told him that he's not going back to Carter's Mountain. He used that on the first official visit. He was upset. He couldn't get any more apple cider and donuts at the mountain. But just to see that kid just always smiling, cut through the locker room at practice, and he's always in the middle, dead center in the middle, just dancing, having a circle around him, like everyone hyping him up, and he was just life of the party. So, like I said, everyone deals with their grief differently, and it was definitely a traumatic experience, but it's good to just think of these guys in a positive light, to think of it as a celebration, and the amount of joy that these guys brought to these coaches' lives, their teammates' lives, their support staff lives, I mean, it's definitely truly going to be missed. So,
I appreciate the perspective and bringing some vibrancy to the impact they've had on all of us. It's really easy for me to feel sad, but I love, and I kind of feel bad sometimes about thinking about the fun things, because I might smile or chuckle about something they've done, and then I feel bad because I'm supposed to be sad, and so I don't know the time frame and how that how that works or how it's appropriate, but it felt good just to smile when you're telling those stories. Matthew Edwards, we'll shift to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Excited to kind of be a part of this, and it's helpful for me, and hopefully this can be helpful for others to learn a little bit more about their lives. Lavel, it holds a special place in our family's life. My grandpa is named Lavel. My son's middle name is Lavel after my grandpa, and he knows that, and he feels pride in the name Lavel. And then when I told him that we had a player named Lavel that was new his freshman year, he looked at me and said, "Oh, well, he's part of the Lavel family." And ever since that moment, had always really liked Lavel. And whenever he would come to practice, when Luke was 3 feet tall, he'd go stand to Lavel, who's 6'7", probably even taller, and just the dichotomy and how different these people were. But Lavel always made him feel special, and really went out of his way. When I told Lavel that Luke had said he was part of the Lavel family, that meant a lot to him. It wasn't just, oh, that's kind of a fun thing. It was something that he really cared about the people that he was around. He was somebody that was always, looking out for people, especially the people that are maybe overlooked. It's easy for people to care about, people who might be considered important, the head coach or their position coach or other coaches. But he was someone who always looked out for kids that would come to practice, or, the equipment trainers and the managers and people who are, maybe not quite as important to the world, but were important to him. And he always made people feel important. And that was one thing that, I really loved about him. And, he really meant a lot to our family, and especially our son because of that. And, Deshaun, similar interactions with him in that he was, quiet on the field. I think either Nick or Kelly brought that up, and was a different person on the field than when he was off the field. At first, we just saw him on the field and didn't know exactly how he'd be if I talked to him off the field. But any interaction I had with him was someone that always brought joy to people and found interest in whatever was being talked about. And that's something that I really appreciated about Deshaun. And just, really special people, and, really happy to have run across their paths while I was there.
One of the things that has been really unique for me is to watch. So my wife's name is Holly, and being a head coach's wife, she sees it all, from the assistant coaches and their families to all the players and their challenges. And I'm interested from Nick and Kelly and Garett and Marky how this has impacted your spouses and your kids as you've been going through this, and what messaging and how are you handling that?
Yeah, real quick. I woke up in the morning early to that message from Garett, and woke Brooke up and told her, and it was rough. And I went to work because we have these kids here to go to work for, but that was a rough day. The Charlottesville community, we live here in Nashville, but the Charlottesville community has been amazing to my wife and my kids, and the outpouring of Crozet and the Charlottesville Second and just all their friends and teams and coaches' wives they've all been there, My two girls wore their Virginia gear to school today. I saw them go to high school today, and they went, and then, we had to tell Dakota on P Day, he's on his mission, and it was tough, and he was hurt, and he knows these kids, just going on what Matt said. Lavel was like such a kind kid to all the coaches' families. Lavel was, just a leader and kind of a magnet to the kids. We spent a lot of times in that indoor there, everybody with their kids, and you guys know Lavel lived in there with Demeek and those guys on the jugs machine. But how many times we were in there throwing a baseball or kicking a soccer ball, and Lavel would just be in there and truly stop and really care about the kids. So it's been tough, man. Like little Zion, he loves football, and he looks up at these kids like idols, and it's hard for them to understand. But just the reaching out of everybody in Charlottesville and Crozet and our friends, our family, it's been amazing and a blessing to see all those people rally around each other, and really the coaches' wives, Lauren and Brooke have been able to talk. I just know that's been super hard on the Hagen's family and won't get easy, but just those relationships, like Marky said, they don't go away.
Yeah, go ahead, Coach.
No, I was just going to say, Garett, I know that your son Carson had a special relationship, so I'd love to hear about that.
So Carson has his day where he can talk to us on Mondays, and so he's 7 hours ahead. So it's 11 o'clock Sunday night, and rampant text messages, shelter in place, and we're on the phone with him and talking to him, and Cammie looks at me. We're Cammie and my middle daughter Summer. She's laying in our bed as we're listening to police scanners, and it's just total chaos and can't believe what's going on. And Cammie looks at me and she's like, "Hey, should we tell Carson?" And I go, "We don't have all the facts. I don't want him worrying about it." And so we just went along with the conversation. And about 7:30 in the morning, he shoots me a DM message, and he's like, "Dad, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, I'm fine. Why? What's going on?" He's like, "Dad, I talked to Josh Williams." call our athletic director's son. I know what's going on. Are you okay? And I was like, no, son, I'm not. It's pretty brutal. And so he said he was going to call us, and he called us right in the middle of a team meeting. And I looked at my phone, I looked at his face, and I just lost it. And I handed the phone to my wife. And I was like, I got to be here for our team. I got to be down here. And so she went down and she was talking to him. And about 30 minutes later, she looks at me and she's like, get your butt over here. Your son needs you. So I went down there and he started telling me about the last 18 months he's been in Crozet in Charlottesville. Almost every night, Lavel's been meeting him to get him on the judge machine, teaching him how to catch a ball, teaching him the right way. And he's like, Dad, those catches I got over my shoulder on Friday nights, that's because of Lavel. And I didn't know that. I knew my son was down there. I knew he was training. And I know Coach Howell's got him on some crazy tackling drill on the popsicle sled. And I had no idea he's in there with Lavel. Lavel goes down and is cheering him on and motivating him while he's going to hit PRs and power clean and squat at a local gym down in Adapt, and having no idea. He's telling me all these great stories about his relationship with Lavel. And it's like Nick said, man, our kids grow up and they see these guys and they look up to them and they're like idols. And the fact that they take the time out of their day, their school, their demands from us, and to teach our kids their craft, to pass it on. Every time Carson catches a ball from this day forward, he's going to remember Lavel. He's going to remember Lavel, and I just can't reiterate how fortunate I've been, right, to be a part of this. And we all talk about the service of it, but really the greatest gift you can give anybody is something they can't repay you for. And my family and I will never be able to repay Lavel for what he did, and just building that confidence and courage in my son.
Thank you. Justin Anderson was our director of player personnel, and he's currently at Brigham Young University and just joined us. And so, Justin, we'd love to hear what this experience has been like for you and your family, and any relationships and stories that you might want to share.
Yeah, it's I haven't heard. Unfortunately, I just got out of another meeting, but probably like most of you, I woke up Monday morning to a bunch of texts, and just shocked. And I think when you find out the details and the people involved, it hits in a different manner. And I remember telling my kids, my two boys, I guess me being a receiver, they're partial to the receiver group a little bit, but they always loved Lavel. He's a larger than life kind of guy anyways, as it is, but they were sad. And, for us, the gospel of Jesus Christ gives us hope. And we've talked a lot about that. And my kids have talked a lot about each of these guys and what we can do to honor them. And I think I said this on to some of you coaches, but I believe the way you honor people is the way you live your life. And those guys were amazing human beings. They made the place better because they were there. And I think the way that each of us can honor them is to make our situations, the people around us, that they can know that they're loved, and we can make the world a better place because of them. I was thinking about Lavel, and I remember the first, I feel like I helped find Lavel on film. I remember we were watching film one time and everyone was telling me, this dude can't play receiver. I'm like, this guy's going to be a beast, And, when he came on his visit, I remember we were at Canes in Charlottesville, and we were talking, and man, he was so hungry to be like a great athlete. Like he wanted to be like this, you know, I think he had met with you at the time, Coach, and the idea of earn, not give. I mean, he was eating that stuff up. He's like, oh, this is going to be awesome, you know, and he had this desire to be the best. And, you know, I just remember going in the weight room, when he was hurt with his ACL that year after his freshman year, and Nate, one of the strength coaches, they had those guys and they were working out for this gold necklace that they could wear if they had the best, you know, workout of the day or whatever it was. And Lavel seemed to be wearing it quite a bit, but I actually enjoyed going down there with those guys because of the excitement that those guys had for it. But his competitive nature, to be great, was there. And, yeah, it was cool to see. And I just remember, I can think of some of the conversations I had with him in my time at UVA. I guess I had a special place for him because I felt like I found him. You know, he's that diamond in the rough guy you guys mentioned. And he was just such a pleasant guy to be around. And for me, I'm such a short guy. It was fun to hug him because I felt like I was the giant of a person. So yeah, I just, you know, and I think of Deshaun and I think of his resilience is what I think of when I think of Deshaun. You know, every time I'd go in the weight room, he was always just so hungry, and he always worked so hard, regardless of where he was at on the depth chart or what he might have wanted. I never saw like a change in his behavior. And I always appreciated that from Deshaun. And, you know, Marky put that rap on the other night, and it actually made me smile a little bit as I saw him and I saw his personality. And I can remember that video all those years ago and how much, you know, he enjoyed that and how much his teammates enjoyed that, and how you could see the kind of like, he was the center of attention at that moment after Marky kind of did his rap. You know, there was Deshaun and the guys were losing their minds. And I just think that he had a unique way of making people feel loved. And then, you know, Devin, I remember kind of, Coach, I think you'd mentioned this at some point, but, you know, we recruited him and he chose to go somewhere else. And I remember when he got in the portal, how excited I was. I was like, oh man. I remember telling Coach Hagan's like, we got to get this guy back here, man. He's the right fit. He's an amazing player. And, he had a smile that was pretty infectious. You know, he seemed to be quite quiet initially, you know, when we first met him, but he had such a contagious smile. And, you know, with Mike, I guess, you know, you guys tease me, but I'm basically from Louisiana. I mean, I'm an adopted child from down there. And, Coach, you probably remember this. We went to see Mike. This is the story about the Canes where, you know, we went to go watch Mike play in Louisiana. I think Marky had something and I got to go out on the road and recruit. And I remember going to watch Mike at his game. And, you know, Mike was a unique kid. He was a hard worker. And his mom was always super positive. And, you know, I guess Mike's kind of like one of those guys you get attached to because of where he's from me. And Mike always worked hard. And I remember from the first time he got there, I always believed he had such a bright future ahead of him, just like those other guys. And I was always partial to him and wanted him to succeed at UVA so bad because, you know, he was one of those Louisiana kids that had come up there with us. And I think for me, like when you think of these moments and I see you guys, memories are important. Money and fame, those things go up and down. They pass over time. But the one thing you'll always take with you are the memories. And I'm grateful that I have positive memories of those guys. Like I've lost my two oldest siblings and I don't ever think of them in a sad way. Like, when I think of Lavel and Deshaun and Devin, I don't have a negative thought. Like I think of smiles. I can see, like I said, see Lavel. And I'm grateful for that. grateful that God allows us to keep those things with us. And I think for me, I just hope that I can honor them through how I live, and making sure that young people I'm around know that they're loved, and that the people around me know that they're loved. So yeah, I'm grateful I had time with those guys individually, and I guess the Lord puts us in places so that we can have those experiences, and I'm just grateful for the chance I had to be there at UVA with them over time, and that they brought light to my life.
Thanks, Justin. I just saw some of Kelly's girls in the screen, and it made me think of Coach Atuaia. Coach Atuaia has a couple kids that in Virginia. I had 30 acres and horses, and the players would come out to ride. And Coach Atuaia's two youngest kids are Perry and Patti, and they were out at our place with cowboy hats and boots on, and one seems to keep wearing them no matter where he goes. He's wearing them up in Pullman right now.
That's the influence you've had, boss. So
what has it been like in terms of, Marky, when you're talking with your family and trying to help your kids understand all this?
Yeah, since Sunday, they've seen how devastated I've been, the struggle. And when they found out, and especially Mike, because Mike has been in our home a lot.
Yeah.
And so, they were concerned. We didn't know. It was touch and go at that time. We didn't know whether he was going to, first of all, we didn't know if he was still alive. And then when we knew that he was alive, we didn't know if he was going to make it. And so his name, and also, Lavel and Devin and Deshaun and their family, their collective families, that they've been in our prayers ever since Sunday, and it's not an uncommon thing to hear those names every night and every morning when we're praying. This is the other thing too, though, that's been lost in this is I have been in constant contact with Nusi Malani, who's on our team, Wayne Taulapapa, who plays for our rival, and Bobby Haskins, who's down over there at SC, and we've been constantly communicating because, again, they feel just like us. They want to be connected. They want to be. They want to find a way to share these express these feelings with people that understand. It was mentioned earlier, with people that understand who these young men are, the things that we've gone through together as a team. And they want to express that with somebody. So it's been a healing in that regard. I haven't been in contact with anybody East Coast, but all the West Coast guys that have been with us, those guys, we've been in constant contact since Sunday, and it's been a beautiful thing to talk, to discuss, to express our feelings about the young men that have passed, and then also with Mike, and hard things together. That's real. That's real. Because everybody in the outside world judges us from the outcome, either the triumphs or the failures. But none of them understand the daily grind, the journey, the things that we do on an everyday basis to build those relationships. Hence the reason why we're four guys that are away from everybody on the West Coast, and we crave to be with everybody over there in Charlottesville, to be with y'all. I mean, if we didn't have a game, real talk, we'd be over there at the Memorial. If we weren't working, I'm telling you the truth, all of us would have been over there. So just know, all of you guys that are in Charlottesville, just understand, bro. We struggling. We feel the same pain that y'all feeling too, because we've been in those difficult situations. We've done those things together. And again, I appreciate this forum, boss, and I'm hoping that coaches understand, everybody that's listening to this podcast, understand, and right, you can choose what kind of coach you're gonna be. You can be that one that just treats it like a business, or the ones that put their heart out there and really build these relationships with these young men. And that's who we are. And that's how we've been taught. And that's how we're going to continue to be. Thank you, boss.
Thanks, Marky. Kelly, any last messages for anyone that's listening, or anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I'm going to share a text message somebody sent me. If I can get through it. Okay, it says, the relationships we have built and the influences for good on these guys is what matters. We sacrifice the things we do because we love them dearly. I know there's balance, and I promise we'll find that again. Just remember that these boys love you, and they love love our family. They appreciate all you did and continue to do for them. They love us because they know how much we love them and care for them. They know that because you are always there for them, even if that means lost sleep and long days at the office. And so I think ultimately that's what, coaching is we sacrifice a lot, even our families. But ultimately it's to help these kids hopefully learn and grow in life, and hopefully they feel that. I think they do. I think they know that we genuinely care for them and appreciate them. And that's why I think they care and appreciate us, And, I know that just from messages I've got from Sean's mom, I know she appreciated all of us, not just me, but all of us. And just the messages she sent me throughout the week of how much she loves Coach Hagens, she loves you, Coach, she loves just our whole staff and all we did. That's brought peace to me. And it might be hard at times for how much we're away from our families, but it's worth it.
I don't think that there's a more fitting way to close the podcast than with that message. For those that are listening, I've been really lucky. I work with my friends, my closest friends, and those are the ones on the screen. And besides them and my family, my wife and kids, there's not time for anything else. And I've been lucky to be surrounded by great men. Hopefully everyone listening has sensed that and got a feeling for that. And we're grateful for your time, and for all you guys on the screen. We'll cross paths somewhere, and appreciate you being here tonight. Good night, everybody.
Love you all.
See you, boys.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.